Hello, this is Shadow Sentinel Gaming, and I'm here to present an extensive analysis and breakdown of my modded Mass Effect 3 playthrough. For anyone who's seen the playthrough, or most of it, and is familiar with the vanilla version of the game, you probably noticed that parts of the game's narrative were changed. Regarding my modded playthroughs of Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, the narrative elements of those games were left mostly untouched, except for a few restored or corrected assets. The mods for those playthroughs were mainly quality of life improvements that affected gameplay, atmosphere, and immersion. Mass Effect 3, however, had a few mods that reimagined certain aspects of the story. As I wrote in the descriptions of each of my playthroughs videos, I understand that the idea of altering someone else's story in any way can be seen as a bad thing. If so, this playthrough may have been in poor taste. Despite this divisive idea, I tried to incorporate mods that made welcome changes to the story, whether they made things more consistent and less contrived, or simply offered something different and alternative. For the mods and elements discussed in this video, first, I'll introduce a mod and provide a description of what it is and what it does to the story. Then I'll go into greater detail, recounting the vanilla version of the narrative element the mod changes, and explain why I feel the mod makes it better. Keep in mind that this is, of course, only my opinion, though it is worth mentioning that many mod authors have expressed similar sentiment about the original, and even cited it as their inspiration for developing their mods. Regarding the mod authors, I really hope that this video and its analysis of Mass Effect 3's story and its appraisal of the chosen mods brings attention and appreciation to the Mass Effect modding community. I also hope it encourages others that have not played the series in a while to give playing it with mods a try, especially those that chose not to buy the Legendary Edition of the trilogy due to their disappointments with certain writing choices that were made during the third game. There is so much available for players on Nexus Mods, and the mod content is all free. If you love or loved Mass Effect, I highly recommend giving mods a try. It might reignite your passion for the trilogy like it did for me. There is a learning curve to modding your games, but it is worth it. There's even a modding guide on Nexus for beginners to help you get started. With all that said, let's get into the first mod that made changes to my playthrough story of Mass Effect 3. Reworked Kai Lang. This mod removes Kai Lang's lines, gives him a helmet, and makes him a little more challenging in combat. Technically, this mod makes relatively small changes to the overall story, but still alters certain atmospheric and characterization elements. In the vanilla version of the story, Lang is portrayed as a rival to Shepard and the Illusive Man's replacement for Shepard. Lang's past as a former N7 soldier and as an adversary worthy of Anderson's respect seems to have been written in to further accentuate these characterization choices. We first catch a glimpse of Lang during the conversation with the Illusive Man on Mars, and are fully introduced to him during the Citadel coup, when he holds Counselor Valorn hostage. In terms of tone and direction, Lang's character is strangely handled. Initially, the writers portray him as a cocky super space ninja that doesn't see Shepard or his squad as much of a threat. When Shepard tells Lang to give up, since it's a 3-on-1 fight, Lang responds with,
No, it's fun.
Here, the writers tell us that Lang is not only a competent fighter, but also an enthusiastic one. Then Thane intervenes and starts fighting Lang. Even though he's terminally ill and has a weak cardiovascular system, Thane eventually turns the tables and starts kicking Lang's ass. Now, Lang looks laughably incompetent. No, I literally laughed when Thane biotic backhanded him across the floor. Seems like a contradiction in Lang's characterization to me. Then Lang and Thane charge at each other, and Thane impales himself on Lang's sword. I know, Thane wasn't trying to die. but the way the scene was directed and choreographed really made it look that way. As soon as Thane is down, Lang runs and hops on a sky car to assassinate the rest of the council. Once more, this contradicts Lang's statement that fighting multiple opponents is fun. The mod's removal of this one line alone makes Lang less contradictory with his words and actions. It also makes him look like a mysterious Cerberus operative that is simply trying to complete his mission, in which case, Lang running away makes more sense since he would be wasting time otherwise. The mod continues in this new direction, with the option to have a Phantom take down Shepard's sky car instead of Lang. In the vanilla version, it seems strange to me that Lang would stop and wait for Shepard when he's supposed to be assassinating the rest of the council before they can evacuate. Why stop, wait, and jeopardize your mission when you can order your subordinates to stop your pursuers? This change makes more sense for Lang's role during the coup and better fits the urgent tone of the mission. It also allows the game to use the cutscene to introduce the Phantom to the player as a new class of enemy. The only other thing the mod changes to this mission is the removal of the conversation that normally happens between Lang and the Illusive Man after the council is saved and the coup thwarted. Considering Lang's vanilla first appearance, this mod did a good job introducing and utilizing him. For Lang's vanilla appearance in the Temple of Athame on Thessia, the writers make his competence skyrocket. He goes from barely beating a terminally ill Drell to resoundingly defeating Shepard, Liara, and another of the squad. He does this with the aid of a gunship that pops in every once in a while to cover him when he needs to recharge his shields. In terms of gameplay, the fight is ridiculously easy, even on insanity difficulty. Unfortunately, the cutscene after the fight does not reflect this at all. In fact, it implies the opposite. It was beyond jarring to me when I first played through this part over a decade ago. And arguably even worse, this victory for Cerberus leads into the rather stilted and nonsensical build-up for the control ending with Horizon and Cerberus HQ. Thankfully, the reworked Kai Lang mod makes a few changes to this scene. Besides Lang remaining silent during the cutscenes, the player is given the option of skipping the fight entirely. I would not recommend this. If the player chooses to fight, Lang will have a contingent of Cerberus soldiers backing him up in addition to the gunship. I consider this a welcome change, since it makes Lang feel less like an overpowered super space ninja one-man army. Keyword being less. Unfortunately, the silly sequence with Lang putting down his sword, throwing your squad members aside, and the gunship decimating the temple while he casually walks up to steal Vendetta still remains, and still rubs me the wrong way. But the inclusion of extra Cerberus soldiers altered the tone and atmosphere just enough to make Lang feel less like a one-man army and more like the last most capable man of a small team. That way, it feels like Lang only won due to the gunship and the other Cerberus soldiers wearing Shepard and his squad down. Overall, I think this is one of the best parts of the mod, as long as you don't skip the fight. On Horizon, Lang appears on Sanctuary security footage, but has little to do with the mission directly. Yes, he fights Miranda, though it is off-screen, and retrieves Henry Lawson's research data, also off-screen, but we don't see him in person. Henry also tells us at the end of the mission that Lang took the data, making the security log with Lang's dialogue about his purpose at Sanctuary redundant. Overall, this mod changes very little to this mission, but that's mostly due to the mission's design and utilization of Lang. Before we move on with Lang, I wanted to address a few issues I have with Horizon. Horizon's role in the third act of the game has always bothered me. I see it as the beginning of the writers trying to set up the control ending at the cost of the characters making gross assumptions with no hard evidence. The overall narrative structure of Sanctuary is very reminiscent of found footage movies, which I do like. We only get snippets of what happened in the facility through video and audio recordings. As a result, there are considerable gaps in our knowledge and a substantial lack of context. Sometimes this can be good for mystique or intrigue, but this is not how Horizon is utilized by the writers. I would like to point out that the reason the Reapers attack Sanctuary is never confirmed. Yet, the characters claim that the Reapers attacked out of fear, and that what Cerberus was researching was a threat.
The Reapers attacked because this place was a threat. We need to find out why.
How? What are they basing this on? How could the indoctrinated do things that are antithetical to the suggestions of the Reapers? Cerberus never experimented with any Reaper destroyers or capital ships, at least according to what we learned during the mission. Besides, there's never been a precedent or instance of someone capturing or subduing one of them. You know, considering the smallest of them are as tall as buildings, and the largest of them are taller than skyscrapers, and each of them has more firepower than a dreadnought. There's a significant gap between controlling Reaper forces and the Reapers themselves. This fact is acknowledged by many characters, but the Illusive Man claims he can control the Reapers with the Catalyst. When asked, he refuses to elaborate. Perhaps the writers didn't want to commit to anything concrete regarding the concept of controlling the Reapers. Maybe the Illusive Man is so indoctrinated that he can't articulate the specifics, which would make sense if said specifics don't actually exist. Interestingly, the dialogue during the final confrontation with the Illusive Man, Anderson, and Shepard on the Citadel seems to imply this to be the case. As for why the Reapers attacked Sanctuary, maybe the facility had reached full capacity for test subjects, so some harvesters, which are effectively troop transports, came and used a few pawns to fight Cerberus while they captured the subjects to use them on other battlefields. Or maybe the Reapers attacked to ensure the illusion of Cerberus retaining their agency wouldn't be broken. Remember, fast, forceful indoctrination makes a thrall mentally deteriorate quickly, but slow, patient indoctrination allows a thrall to perform more long-term, complex tasks. The drawback of the slow method is that the thrall retains more agency, or the illusion of agency. However, the Reapers can mitigate this by using more tangible means to guide long-term thralls along the paths they desire, such as attacking them, or through Reaper tech implants. Of course, this is my own inductive reasoning that has its own shortcomings, but I wanted to provide at least some evidence that supports it. To remove these questionable writing choices from Horizon in my playthrough, I simply edited out the assumptive lines that try to set up the control ending. Thanks to anyone that listened to this tangent about Horizon. With that out of the way, let's get back to reworked Kai Lang. For Lang's final appearance in Cerberus headquarters, aka Kronos Station, the mod removes the terminal with Lang's logs, and removes Lang's lines that lead into the fight in the Illusive Man's office. Interestingly, he still yells when he punches the floor in the cutscene before the fight, and during the fight itself. He also still groans when he's struggling during the cutscene after the fight. In the vanilla version of this mission, the writers make another sudden change regarding Lang's competence. When arriving at Cerberus HQ for the first time in the original, I was worried about fighting Lang again, since he cheaply beat me and my squad on Thessia with his invincibility during gameplay, his untouchability during cutscenes, and a little help from the gunship. I thought the fight in Cerberus HQ was going to be easy, but the cutscene after the fight would make it look hard fought, just like Thessia. I was half right. The fight was easy, and the cutscene made it look like it was easy. This was such a regression in terms of the direction the writers seemed to be going with Lang's character as a formidable rival to Shepard. Why would the writers choose to have Lang be so much weaker than Shepard all of a sudden? To give us a satisfying sense of revenge for Thane's death and Lang's victory on Thessia? To make sure Shepard and the squad would need a recovery period before the final assault on Earth? To make Shepard assert dominance over Lang while breaking his sword with that admittedly cool interrupt? I have no idea. If we map it out, Lang goes from semi-competent Phantom on the Citadel to a one-man army on Thessia to an incompetent Phantom during Cerberus headquarters. His competence is showcased in some scenes and is lauded by knowledgeable, trustworthy characters like Anderson and Miranda, but this is severely offset by his incompetence in other scenes, even when he has the home field advantage. Weirdly, according to some of the dialogue, the writers seem to be aware of this contradiction themselves, at least to some extent, such as how Lang runs away a lot, how he never manages to finish Shepard off, and how he had a single gunship to thank for carrying him on Thessia. But regardless of the minute details, the overall tone, development, and direction of Lang's character in the vanilla story are inconsistent and all over the place. Is he a badass? Or does he just think he's a badass? Going back and forth for the sake of plot convenience, or for creating or resolving conflict, is a severe detriment to a character's quality, not to mention the stories. However, on a more positive note, the reworked Kai Lang mod offers a final surprise, which was somehow not spoiled for me while I was researching and selecting mods. Lang's helmet is partially broken during the final cutscene, revealing a huskified face, similar to the Cerberus soldier Ashley unmasked on Mars. In terms of lore consistency, it was rather strange that Lang looked more human and less husk-like than his comrades, despite the fact that he is also implanted with Reaper tech. If this bugged anyone, the mod fixes this oddity. I like this change for that reason as well, but I think there's more to appreciate about it thematically. I feel that his modded face, being similar to other Cerberus soldiers, emphasizes how he's just another indoctrinated pawn, another fool who signed away his agency and individuality for corruptive strength and the Reaper's empty promise of survival. In other words, he really isn't as remarkable as he, or the writers, want us to think. It feels like the perfect cherry on top for this reimagined version of Kai Lang. Less of a cocky, overpowered super space ninja with the writer's favor, and more of a slightly better than average Phantom whose comrades had a big hand in his missions and successes, making them a little less contrived and a little more believable. Despite the fact that Lang didn't have a huge role in the story of Mass Effect 3 compared to many other characters, many of us remember him for just being a bad character. I personally think this stemmed from the writers trying to create a rival for someone as accomplished as Commander Shepard this late in the trilogy, with little context or build-up, in addition to utilizing said rival in a very inconsistent and contrived manner. Considering the limitations the mod author had to work within, this mod did an excellent job improving Kai Lang's role in the story, simply by making him more mysterious, removing his hollow boasts, giving his allies a larger role, and revealing that underneath his helmet, he really is just as abominable, disposable, and forgettable as his indoctrinated comrades. In closing, this mod did what I thought for a long time would be impossible. Make Kai Lang less intolerable. Very well done.
No gunship this time, you son of a bitch.
Thane lives. This mod makes Thane's medical treatments at Huerta Memorial Hospital put him on the road to recovery, makes him survive the events of the Citadel coup, and allows him to take up his old quarters on the Normandy and work as a coordinator for Drell Wetwork teams. It's worth noting that this mod makes use of AI voices for much of the new dialogue. This is a controversial topic in creative industries, but this mod is free, the author is not profiting from it, and it follows the guidelines and regulations set by Nexus Mods regarding AI content. As for the voices themselves, This mod suffers from a few technical issues, such as the volume for some of the voice lines being too low compared to some of the other in-game audio, and some of the lines cutting off unexpectedly. But I think the quantity and quality of the changes are well balanced overall. In the vanilla version of the game, I've heard many different opinions regarding Thane's death. They can range from angry and sad to accepting and satisfied. Interestingly, I find myself somewhere in the middle. My real grievance with Thane's death is less the concept of it, and more the execution and utilization of it. If Thane survives the Collector base and is part of Mass Effect 3, he dies to Kai Lang during the Citadel coup no matter what the player does. While some may attack the writers for not giving the player the option to save Thane if certain conditions are met, I think that it's okay for them to go in a sorrowful direction for a character, as long as it's well executed and fits with said character's motivations, values, and beliefs. I would say they got the latter right, but the former wrong. Let's take a look at the scene where Thane fights Kai Lang. I touched on my issues with this scene during my analysis of the reworked Kai Lang mod, but now we're going to delve deeper. Considering Thane's initial interference saved Valorn from being held at palm gunpoint, he did not need to finish the fight with Lang. He could have, and arguably should have, fallen back. Shepard and his 2 squad members could have taken over and covered Thane when Lang activated his cloak. In my opinion, this outcome felt very contrived and made Thane's death feel needless and easily avoidable, even if it was tonally heroic. The death could have been better if it was just better directed and choreographed. Thane Lives removes Thane from this scene and has Shepard's squad save Valorn. Lang lost his ability to hold Valorn hostage as soon as he was confronted by 3 enemies, 2 of which could easily outflank him in that room. The scene makes more sense logically and tactically, and Valorn and Thane survive. A much more preferable outcome. As for the writer's choice to have Thane die, maybe they didn't know what to do with Thane for the rest of the story, so they just gave him a hero's death. Or perhaps they felt it would be a bittersweet final act for a good-hearted assassin seeking redemption. While I don't dislike the idea of Thane dying heroically, I feel the writers forewent an equally important detail, or at least an equally interesting direction. A significant aspect of Thane's character is his desire to rebuild his relationship with his son Kolyat. Granted, the writers didn't forget about Kolyat. He visited Thane regularly at the hospital, was present at Thane's deathbed after the coup, and held a memorial for Thane during the Citadel DLC. Not every story or character has to have a happy ending. It just has to be well told. I would say that the choices made for Thane's story were tasteful overall, but that one glaring contrivance that led to Thane dying has always been a small but noticeable blotch on his role in Mass Effect 3 to me. If there was a mod that gave Thane a different kind of death, I would honestly give it a try just to see if it made his death seem less like a needless one and more of an unavoidable one. Although, a mod allowing Thane to live life with his son and his friends was equally welcome and intriguing to me. Ultimately, this mod offered a well-done alternative to the divisive fate of one of the trilogy's major characters. At the time of writing and reading this script, I recently found out that the author of Thane Lives came out with 2 new mods, Mordin Lives and Legion Lives. I'm not including these 2 mods in this video, but they encourage me to analyze the executions of Mordin and Legion's deaths, and how they compare to Thane's. Thane did save Counselor Valorn, but he didn't need to intervene, and again, his death felt easily avoidable. Conversely, when Mordin gave his life to cure the Genophage, not only did it fit his desire to redeem himself for the damage he helped inflict on the Krogan when he helped strengthen the original Genophage, it was also instrumental in ensuring an alliance between the Krogan and Turians. In my opinion, Mordin's role in Mass Effect 3 was an excellent final chapter for his character's narrative, and his work on the Cure and his sacrifice gave him a small but pivotal role in the overall narrative. Because of his familiarity with the genophage, his past as an STG operative, as well as his scientific and technical expertise, only Mordin could counteract the STG sabotage to the Shroud and ensure that the genophage cure dispersed properly. Whereas during the coup, Shepard and his squad could have easily fought on Thane's behalf once Valorn was no longer in Lang's line of fire. At least 3 other people could have saved Valorn and Thane from Lang during the coup, but during the events of Tuchanka, no one but Mordin could have cured the genophage. The same can be said for Legion. Not only could no organic do what Legion had to do in order to give the Geth true intelligence and save them from the Quarians, but only a Geth like Legion, whose platform had a unique amount of processing and networking power, could copy the Fallen Reaper's code and upload it to all Geth. We saw the Reapers use Legion in a similar way when they used him on the Geth Dreadnought to broadcast the Reaper control signal to all Geth. So there is already a precedent for Legion being able to stream large amounts of data to multiple Geth at once. Granted, the exact reasoning for his direct personality dissemination at the end of Rannoch is unclear and ambiguous, but I would consider this a minor contrivance that is balanced out by what his sacrifice achieved. Legion's actions eliminated the Geth's weakness of interdependence, and helped Shepard broker peace between the Geth and Quarians, and recruit them both for the war effort. In my opinion, just like Mordin, Legion's final act fit his character's motivations, values, and beliefs, was well executed, and was effectively incorporated into the overall narrative. Now, I wouldn't say it would be better if Thane had a story with massive stakes like Mordin or Legion, but why not give him something similar to some of the other major characters? They didn't have the same pivotal roles as Mordin or Legion, but still functioned as support characters and war assets. Interestingly, some of them can die depending on the player's decisions in Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Grunt can die if you don't complete his loyalty mission and choose to save the Rachni Queen on Udaku. Miranda can die on Horizon if you didn't have the QEC conversation with her. Samara can die if you don't intervene at the end of Lessus, and Jack can be captured and turned into a phantom if you choose to ignore Grissom Academy. The fact that Thane is the odd one out is confusing to me, and clashes with the design choices made for the other narratives involving old squad members. But, thanks to mod authors, players now have the option to reimagine the role of Thane Krios and give him a new lease on life. I would say he deserves it.
I feel like Irika can rest easy knowing that I fully intend to live life.
Anytime, Thane.
Let's get started then.
Dreams Remade. This mod makes the dream sequences more reflective of the player's choices, losses, and fears, and less hyperfixated on the child. In the vanilla version, the first 2 dreams are almost identical. Shepard follows the child through the forest, and the child burns before Shepard can reach him. The third dream ends with the child running into the arms of another Shepard, only for them both to burn shortly afterwards. Whether the writers had a specific message to convey with the child, or they wanted to set up the intelligence taking the form of the child in the vanilla ending, the dreams felt too underdeveloped and vague to hold any meaning for me. Perhaps the child is meant to symbolize the innocence lost in war, or the people Shepard wasn't and isn't able to save. The third dream depicting Shepard burning with the child could represent the idea that if Shepard continues lamenting the ones that cannot or could not be saved, it will end in his own destruction. Once more, this is only my interpretation of a very ambiguous and bizarrely utilized narrative element. There are many other ways to view these sequences as well. Some see the dreams as attempts by the Reapers, or even Harbinger himself, to break down Shepard's will to fight and render him susceptible to indoctrination. In the second and third dreams, you can see what appear to be dark wisps, or oily shadows, in the forest. These are similar to the description given by the Rachni Queen on Noveria in Mass Effect 1, when she visually described her ancestors' experiences of being influenced by the Reapers to instigate the Rachni Wars. I'm not sure if the developers were actively trying to make this comparison and hoped players would make the connection, but considering how many times Shepard has been around Reapers or Reaper technology, especially Object Rho during the Arrival DLC, I think it is very likely that Shepard would be feeling the mental effects of the Reapers by the events of Mass Effect 3, especially during the third act. However, the concept of Shepard being susceptible to indoctrination is divisive among players. In terms of craftsmanship, the remade Dreams have solid direction, cinematography, and audio design. As for how the Dreams Remade mod specifically alters the dreams, it removes much of the child's presence while incorporating some of the more relevant aspects of the story. It includes the strained relationship between Shepard and the Virmire survivor, the one who died on Virmire, Anderson's dangerous choice to stay on Earth and help the others fight back, Mordin's sacrifice, Tarquin Victus's sacrifice, the precarious future of the Krogan, Legion's sacrifice, the colonists' loss to the Collectors, and the lives of Shepard's crew and friends. Another cool addition is Harbinger showing up at the end of each of the dreams and destroying something Shepard has yet to lose. And just before Shepard wakes up, Harbinger shoots Shepard with his laser, foreshadowing when Shepard gets shot in a very similar way during the run to the conduit beam in the final mission on Earth. All in all, I would say this mod is an instance of good, mostly visual storytelling that conveys the inner thoughts and feelings of a worn-down Shepard. I'm impressed with how this mod took an aspect of the story that felt obscure with very little to say, so to speak, and made it into something interesting. Many congratulations to the author for this alternate interpretation. Audemus's Happy Ending mod, which I will refer to as simply the Happy Ending mod, out of fear of further butchering the author's name. This mod removes the intelligence and the decision chamber, overhauls the functionality of the Crucible, restores some cut content, and reimagines the ending by making it simpler and more coherent. The original ending of Mass Effect 3. One of the most controversial, contested, and divisive endings in the history of video game narratives. The possible reasons for why the ending turned out the way it did are mostly unknown and fraught with uncertainty. Whether from panels, forums, or social media, many sources of information have said many different things regarding the issues the studio faced during development and production. Today, many of these sources have gone missing, been removed, or had their credibility contested. Since the end of the game's development is mired in so much chaos, and the fallout and discourse surrounding it more so, I can only appraise the vanilla ending as it is in-universe, and postulate the possible ideas the writers had based on the concepts included. Let's start with the run to the Citadel beam. While the writing choices of Harbinger ignoring the Normandy, wounding Shepard rather than disintegrating him, and leaving the beam, even though Shepard and Anderson are still alive, are detrimental, I have a different issue with the sequence. What the Citadel beam itself does. It seemingly teleports Shepard to a new, unknown part of the Citadel. Teleports. Throughout the entire Mass Effect trilogy, the concept of teleportation has never been discussed by any of the characters, or included in any of the lore regarding phenomena or technology. It only occurs in this one instance and is never addressed or elaborated. It seems similar to the conduit on Ilos accelerating and decelerating the Mako in Mass Effect 1, except the conduit on Ilos didn't appear to have any obstructions in its path, whereas the conduit on Earth does. Shepard goes from being in an open space to inside an otherwise inaccessible location. Maybe I'm missing something, but this is what makes me think this is teleportation. A relatively minor and simple contrivance compared to what's to come, but I wanted to include it. Another issue that starts when Shepard arrives on the Citadel and snowballs during the conversation with the Intelligence is the gross assumptions Shepard makes and how little thought is given to the reasoning, similar to what I noticed during Horizon. When Anderson says this unknown part of the Citadel is reminiscent of the Collector base, Shepard responds affirmatively and goes even further, claiming that it makes sense. This is a colossal assumption, with the only justification being that the Reapers could be making another human Reaper in here. This leads into yet another issue. Didn't the Collectors need a giant processing plant as well as months of work to create a human Reaper? And the one our heroes faced in the Collector base wasn't even finished yet. However, it may be possible that the Reapers were just going to get started making a human Reaper, while they lured in the rest of this cycle's organic forces to destroy them all in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, even if that is the case, there's still the issue of this random new aspect to the Citadel. The Citadel's primary function was to be the mass relay link to dark space and allow the Reapers to strike at the heart of each cycle's galactic community every 50,000 years. Granted, the Citadel has never been fully explored or understood by the species that live on it, but it was postulated by Vigil that this was to hide the Citadel's true nature as a giant mass relay. Of course, Vigil likely doesn't know everything about the Citadel, so it is possible that the Citadel hides more secrets. However, to imply the Citadel has a second function as a Reaper processing plant in the last 20 minutes of the game without any kind of build-up or confirmation significantly lowered the quality of the ending. I say imply because this whole human Reaper facet to the final act ends up going nowhere by the time the credits roll. If one of the primary goals of the Reapers for this cycle was to make a human Reaper, why didn't they just construct a processing plant on Earth itself where all the humans that they needed to process were? Even better, they could have built one in London, tying both the London subplot and human Reaper concept together. As for the Citadel, the Reapers need it for future cycles and have to keep it away from the Crucible, so why not move it to Earth and consolidate all forces to protect both the Citadel and processing plant? Sorry, I wanted to include one of my own hypothetical alternate scenarios for the finale in this video. As for the vanilla finale's utilization of the Citadel, there's an issue with the timing regarding the London subplot, the story revealing the Citadel as the catalyst, and the Citadel being a processing plant. If the Reapers didn't have the resources to build a processing plant, and the Citadel was their only means of creating a human Reaper, which seems highly unlikely to me, why didn't they seize the Citadel, move it to Earth, and begin processing the human population as soon as they arrived in the Milky Way? If they truly needed the Citadel, having them take this long into the story to capture it makes little sense. When the Illusive Man discovered that the Citadel is the catalyst and informed the Reapers of this revelation, did it just happen to coincide with the Reapers' plans and accelerate them? If this is indeed the writer's intent, it's far too much of a stretch for me. If I had to guess, the writers might have had a different idea for the ending involving the London subplot, a human Reaper, and the Citadel, but ended up scrapping it and couldn't remove the foreshadowing they set up earlier in the game, so they tried to pretend all these different plot points were connected, or were always meant to connect. It could have been interesting to bring back the human Reaper concept for the finale, it being the Reaper of this cycle, and the intelligence's disordered fulfillment of its directive to preserve life could have been utilized effectively, especially with the context we gained after playing the Leviathan DLC. But, sadly, that's not the ending we got. As much as I would like to, I'm not analyzing the confrontation between the Illusive Man, Anderson, and Shepard, since the Happy Ending mod keeps it the same, but gives it a different atmosphere thanks to its other changes. However, I will take a stab at that silly levitating platform that takes Shepard up to the decision chamber in the vanilla version. So, let's get into one of the biggest issues with the vanilla ending: the intelligence, and the role the writers gave it. There's virtually no lore regarding the nature of the intelligence. Not its role as the directive that controls the Reapers, but the specifics of how it exists, such as its hardware. We know the intelligence is synthetic, an AI created by the Leviathan race, but that's it. The intelligence first claims to be the catalyst, which is actually the Citadel, then it claims to inhabit the Citadel, then it claims that the Citadel is an extension of it, then it openly admits it is the intelligence. Okay, so based on its contradictory statements, I've decided that the intelligence can't be relied on for answers about itself. Let's take a fun detour into some hypothesizing, shall we? Some players, including me, believe that the intelligence uploaded itself into Harbinger, the very first Reaper from the very first Harvest. In terms of characterization, it seems odd for Harbinger to be portrayed as the leader of the Reapers since the second game, only to make him subservient to the intelligence in the last sequence of the third game. It was suggested by Vendetta and Leviathan that the intelligence exists outside the Reapers, but they didn't offer any specific answers of their own regarding the intelligence's physicality. If what we're seeing is a hologram or projection, where is it coming from? Why make Harbinger and the intelligence two separate entities if they effectively have the same role and purpose? If the intelligence isn't one with Harbinger and is being projected from somewhere else, where is it? How does it exist? In a supercomputer all the way in dark space? There are too many unanswered fundamental questions about the intelligence's tangibility. It felt like the writers were unwilling or unable to write new lore and adhere to it, and later utilize this choice by making the intelligence appear omniscient, unknowable, and infallible, when it's really just vague, contradictory, and underdeveloped. Besides these questions of tangibility, there are severe issues with the intelligence's exposition and assertions about the inevitability of organic-synthetic conflict and how it is its purpose to find a solution. Not only do the intelligence's statements ignore certain lessons and facts learned throughout the trilogy, but the scene's tone and direction implies that the player is supposed to accept the intelligence's words as truthful. Why would the writers structure the final major decision of the trilogy around exposition given by the literal ultimate antagonist? As valid counterpoints, Shepard could name the peace between the Geth and Quarians, the life and choices of EDI, and the fact that the Reapers only create more of themselves at the end of each cycle and have done nothing to solve the organic-synthetic conflict problem. Well, Shepard tries to argue, but poorly. Although, even if his arguments were better constructed, they would still be met with the same response. The intelligence just refutes Shepard without ever addressing any of his points, outright ignores him, or changes the subject. Eventually, Shepard stops trying. I would too, honestly. The fundamental issue is that the writers portray the intelligence as the one in the right, both factually and morally, despite strong evidence to the contrary. The fact that these glaring contradictions are left unaddressed and are treated as if they don't matter or don't exist is ludicrous and completely ruins my ability to take the scene seriously. The writers really seem to want the player to throw away everything they had come to learn throughout the entire trilogy and replace it with the illogical concepts and ideology of the intelligence. Seems very similar to Reaper indoctrination, if you ask me. Regarding the possible role of indoctrination in the final sequence of the game, I did view the vanilla ending as an indoctrination attempt when I first played the game over a decade ago. This is usually referred to by the online community as the indoctrination theory, but I didn't even learn about the theory until years afterward, which was quite the surprise. I saw the ending as a mental sequence mainly due to the unrealistic teleportation, the weird wound Shepard has in his abdomen after shooting Andersons, the illogical, absurd assumptions and acceptances Shepard makes throughout, and the intelligence's description of the Crucible's effects, contradicting with its actual effects. This leads into my two biggest issues with the ending. 1. The intelligence cannot be a source of exposition. I don't mean this in terms of its untrustworthy nature as an antagonist, although that should be reason enough, but in terms of the contradictions between what the intelligence claims the Crucible can do and what the Crucible actually does. This ties into the second issue. The vanilla version of the Crucible makes no sense. Though I have many issues with the Control and Synthesis endings, I'll be analyzing the Destroy ending since the Happy Ending mod overhauls the Crucible's Destroy functionality. The intelligence claims that if the Destroy option is chosen, the Crucible will target all synthetics indiscriminately, meaning EDI and the Geth will die as well, not just the Reapers. The intelligence also frames the Destroy option as negative by claiming that the peace will not last. You know, since it's such a leading authority on peace. It goes even further by claiming that Shepard will die too, due to being partly synthetic. Okay. This raises a lot of questions. Namely, what does it mean to be partly synthetic? This means cybernetics if we're using Shepard as a frame of reference. It should also include biotics, right? All biotics have amps implanted in their body's nervous systems that allow them to manipulate Mass Effect fields. This is a cybernetic implant, just like the ones Shepard got from the Lazarus Project. But that's not all. The Quarians have cybernetics that allow them to interface with their suits. According to the logic posited by the intelligence, every biotic in Quarian should die as well. Okay. If you choose Destroy, do the Reapers die? Yes. Do the Geth and EDI die? Yes. Does every biotic in Quarian die? No. Okay, so the Crucible destroys some synthetic material, but not all? That makes no sense. Well, what about Shepard? The intelligence explicitly stated that Shepard would die if Destroy is chosen. So, he should be dead, right? Well, if your effective military strength is high enough, no. I will repeat that. If you choose destroy, Shepard doesn't die. This is shown in-game with the infamous breathing scene that appears in the high EMS destroy ending, and is also explicitly stated in the official game guide. All of this together shows that the Crucible makes no sense, but what does it mean for the intelligence as a source of exposition? Well, as far as I can tell, it means one of two things. One, the intelligence knows what the Crucible can do, and is lying to you so you won't pick destroy, or two, it doesn't know what the Crucible can do, and is just guessing while negatively describing destroy so you won't pick it. Whether it's deception or ignorance, they both mean the same thing. The intelligence cannot function as a source of exposition, making his whole role in the ending moot. Because of this enormous plot hole with the intelligence, and the nonsensical, inconsistent effects of the Crucible, I can't see the vanilla ending as a true, functional ending. Now for the changes brought by the Happy Ending mod. Most importantly, it removes the intelligence and the decision chamber completely, resolving the entire fallacious exposition issue. It makes the Crucible target the Reapers alone, and removes the Crucible's silly control and synthesis options. The mod goes even further beyond by providing codex entries that explain how the Crucible only targets the Reapers.
As construction continues, the brightest minds in the galaxy have begun to unravel the sophisticated scientific principles behind the Crucible's design. The device is capable of emitting a dark energy wave that weakens the binding energy of the nucleon, resulting in atomic destabilization. As Reaper technology is both organic and inorganic, researchers speculate that it is possible to kill a Reaper by irradiating the exotic inorganic materials that compose their outer shells. The organic components within would then be damaged at the cellular level by extreme radiation poisoning. Though theoretically sound, this raises two major complications. The energy wave is subject to inverse square law with a limited radius of 4.6 billion kilometers, far too low to affect anything beyond the system that it's activated in. Additionally, it is unclear how it could be directed in a way that prevents organic beings suffering the same grisly fate as the Reapers. Crucible scientists believe that the catalyst is the key to resolving these issues, but the exact nature of this component remains a mystery. While it's been understood from the outset that the Crucible device is capable of channeling unfathomable amounts of dark energy, the nature of the catalyst has eluded researchers until now. The Prothean VI has revealed that the Citadel, the hub of the Mass Effect relay network, is the catalyst. The Citadel utilizes vast subsystems that coordinate dark energy transmissions throughout the relay network. The Crucible taps into these systems using the dark switches, control functions installed into each mass relay, and exploits their processing power to not only amplify the effective range of the superweapon, but also use it as a critical focusing lens. Through these means, the Crucible then arbitrates atomic weight by relative mass, directing the energy wave to affect matter in infinitely complex ways. Reaper capital ships, destroyers, and other vessels are composed of heavy atomic elements as well as organic components, which, when subjected to radiation from the irradiated exotic materials of the outer shell, would result in lethal levels of internal radiation poisoning. Husks, on the other hand, are composed of low atomic weight elements, such as carbon, while also containing a significant degree of Reaper nanite materials. Therefore, the hadron particles that make up their bodies would be literally ripped apart, dissolving them into nothingness. Since organic beings are made up of purely low atomic weight elements, they should theoretically be completely unaffected by the Crucible so long as they maintain a minimum safe distance from irradiated Reaper corpses following the device's activation. It's clear that if the Crucible were to be damaged during its deployment, this arbitration could be scrambled and produce a potentially catastrophic burst of energy that could do irreparable harm to the galaxy. It is for this reason that the safety of the Crucible is absolutely paramount.
To further strengthen the mod author's interpretation and application of the lore, let me refer to the previous game. Remember how the Reapers were created by processing organic matter and converting said matter into synthetic material? In a mod that overhauls the Collector Base mission in Mass Effect 2, Restored Dialogue states that organic genetic information can be broken down and encoded onto an AI's neural network, thus preserving life in Reaper form. The Happy Ending mod focuses on how the Reapers are composed of this unique material and how that allows the Crucible to specifically target them. In the vanilla version, it always seems strange for the Crucible to be designed and built as an indiscriminate but inconsistent EMP blast that could destroy everything instead of a specialized anti-Reaper weapon. Another welcome change the Happy Ending mod makes is restoring Shepard's final conversation with Anderson. This was a separate mod in the past, but has become part of the Happy Ending mod. I won't go into too many details, but in my opinion, this makes Anderson's death feel much more impactful. The writing, the music, and the performances from Keith David, Mark Murr, and Jennifer Hale were great, and pleasantly contrasted the rest of the vanilla ending's content. It also helps that I didn't know the details of the scene going into it. I was very pleasantly surprised, and I wonder why it was ultimately cut from the original.
Not everything I've done is something to be proud of.
Come here. I'm proud of you. You did good, son. You did good.
Thank you, sir. Anderson?
The Happy Ending mod also overhauls the Memorial Scene. With the mod, the scene feels like a tribute to Anderson's character. In the vanilla version, Shepard's name is placed on the memorial wall in the Control and Synthesis endings, but is not placed on the wall in the High EMS Destroy ending. While the different memorial scenes in the vanilla version seem to be reflective of Shepard's fate more than anything, Anderson's plaque is already placed on the wall and feels like an afterthought. The mod's version of the memorial scene complements the restored final conversation beautifully by accentuating how Anderson's death is a grave loss to Shepard, since they had a close friendship before the trilogy even began. Ultimately, this mod makes the nonsensical vanilla ending into a coherent and meaningful ending by removing most of the excessive contrivances, nonsensical concepts, and plot holes. I say most since the teleportation, assumptions about building a Reaper in the Citadel, and the strange abdomen wound still remain. However, the Intelligence's absence, and the choice to make the Crucible only target the Reapers, more than make up for these shortcomings. Considering the limitations the authors had to work within for this, I would say they accomplished something truly wonderful. Many thanks for sharing this amazing project with the community. Some of us wouldn't be able to enjoy the entire game without it. And I'm one of them. Thank you. The Citadel Epilogue mod. This mod alters the cutscenes and dialogue of the Citadel DLC to make it into an adventure set a few years after the Reaper War. As a standalone side narrative, I really enjoyed the Citadel DLC. It's a lighthearted adventure with lots of influences from sci-fi films and other genres. The main issue I have with its placement in the vanilla version is that its semi-serious spy movie tone clashes with the overall serious tone of the main narrative. However, the concept of the Normandy crew being granted a few days of shore leave during the Reaper War makes sense, considering the risks they take, the responsibilities they're given, and the stress they're under. regarding the writing choices made for the Citadel DLC. It felt like the writers were simply having fun and experimenting. They really show their capabilities with comedy. In fact, the dialogue and scenes in this DLC are among my favorite moments of humor in the trilogy. If I had to criticize some things about the writing, why would the clone and Brooks even want the life of Shepard and the Normandy crew during the war? Considering the risks and uncertainties that come with these roles, it makes little sense. Miranda wondered this too.
Good thing, but why did it want your life? Why would anyone? All that running, jumping, gunfire. It's crazy.
I try not to think about it.
Probably for the best.
And what about Brooks? Her motivations are quite weak and without much of an end goal. At first, I wondered if she had spent a lot of time around Reaper technology during her time with Cerberus, became indoctrinated, and tried to unconsciously sabotage the Reaper's most formidable enemies, the Normandy crew. But with the Epilogue mod, I wonder if she had been indoctrinated, but the destruction of the Reapers led to a sort of mental degradation. Perhaps the Reaper's defunct suggestions intertwined with her own personal views, leading to insane but higher functioning behavior. I'm only guessing, of course, but thankfully, Brooks's role was very brief and minor, and I wasn't very invested in her anyway. There's also the obvious issue that even if Brooks and the clones succeeded, other characters who know Shepard and the Normandy crew would realize that the clone is a clone, and that something is horribly wrong. Yes, the clone updated the official biometric records, but I sincerely doubt that technicality would actually work. However, I think it was meant to be silly and unbelievable, because again, I don't think the writers were being too serious. They poked fun at this detail themselves.
You think fake fingerprints are gonna fool the Council? Or hack it?
The mod's placement of the Citadel DLC's events in a world without Reapers allows the player to fully embrace the fun-loving tone without the overpowering reminder of a war of extinction raging. The creative and comedic dialogue, the recreations of the Silver Sun Strip, and the party can all be enjoyed as a victorious final send-off to this memorable trilogy and our beloved heroes. Before wrapping up the Citadel Epilogue mod, I wanted to present a compilation of some of my favorite funny moments from this DLC. Enjoy!
You're mine, you bastard. God damn it.
Saeed?
Over here, Shepard. This thing is fucking impossible. Got any credit, Shepard?
Isn't there something better we could go do?
What could possibly be more important than Zaid Masani not getting bested by some fucking kids game?
You really want one of those plushy toys?
Goddamn right I do.
Is this space chess?
It's called Kapesh Yakshi, Blade of the Night Winds. The Asari have played it since... we were supposed to meet for lunch. I'm so sorry. I entered the tournament on a lark. I thought I'd be eliminated in the first few rounds.
Oh, don't worry. You'll be free to join your friend in 20 moves or fewer.
T'Souza.
Trainer, would you like to just give me your frigates now? I always take them sooner or later.
Polgara T'Souza. She's knocked me out of 4 tournaments.
Specialist?
Commander?
Kick her ass.
Roger that.
This one is the hero of the Citadel. This one has an incendiary projectile with the Counselor's name on it. Vorcha scum. Prepare for death.
This one is the hero of the Citadel. I'll handle it.
This one insists.
This one doesn't care.
This one wishes he was still frozen in the refrigerator. May we go now, Commander?
Strike the set! Telcasting will need a new Vorcha. Prepare for Blasto 8. Blasto cures the genophage.
They ready for my close-up yet? It's the female, Shepard. Now that they're fertile again. Oh, I haven't slept in I don't know how long.
Can I get you two anything?
2 more drinks. And another bag of ice.
Here are your drinks. And a bag of ice.
I thought Morden's procedure was painful. Oh well.
You've got a family now. A really big family.
Ah, more ice! Yeah, when CSEC got there, they were mad. Or maybe they were mad about their car being on fire. Can't remember.
Why was it on fire?
I threw my bottle of Ringcall at it. Pretty strong stuff. Went up like a bonfire.
Grunt, you apologized to the nice man for setting his car on fire.
Fine. I'm sorry for setting your car on fire. And I won't do it again.
Good.
I'm sad Hanar can't wear sweaters.
Hey guys, talking shop?
No worries, this is fun for us. So, you don't have a sidearm under your pilot's chair?
The weapons locker is on the bridge, practically right there.
A weapon you can't get to is no weapon at all. When's the last time you trained with a handgun?
Sometime before I got the ass-kicking robot as my co-pilot.
That's no good. What if you have to save Edie someday?
Unacceptable. You should always train. Pilots are warriors too. You know what this is? It's a mad emergency. Take this kid out back and make him do target practice. Shepard.
Grunt.
Shepard.
Rex.
Commander Shepard. Shepard.
Rex. Grunt.
Shepard. Shepard.
The Citadel Epilogue mod and the Happy Ending mod together create something that makes the original ending seem like a bad dream. One that we wake up from to a better reality. In my earnest opinion, this is the ending that the trilogy and all of its fans deserved. Many thanks to the authors for saving the ending of Mass Effect 3.
Okay, everyone say Normandy. Normandy!
I would like to reiterate, all of these mods are done for free, mainly as passion projects, and many of them are still being updated and supported. This community is truly something to appreciate, and I'm very happy to have found it and partaken in it. While this video has been based on my own subjectivity, I hope I've analyzed the story of Mass Effect 3 in a firm but fair manner, and appraised the chosen mods well. I promise that all my criticisms of the work done by the original developers come from a place of love and appreciation. I know that at certain points I sound very negative, but I aim to be constructive, not spiteful. Even if the execution in certain places was subpar to me, I still see many good, interesting concepts that deserve praise. To balance out my negativity, I'd like to say that the Mass Effect trilogy is one of my favorite video game series of all time, and so many of its characters are among my favorites in video games. Besides the third game's third act and ending, any issues I had with the rest of the trilogy were negligible, few and far between, and didn't ruin the experience. Considering the story's length, complexity, and number of characters to utilize, it's amazing how much went right. This trilogy is very special to me, and I wanted to give it a tribute that acknowledges the work of the original and the passion projects it's inspired for over a decade. If any of the mod authors are watching, I hope this video brings more attention to you and your amazing work. And thanks to the original developers at BioWare for making these games. Without them, we wouldn't have these mods. If you've made it to the end of this video, I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions or thoughts about the story points or mods I discussed, feel free to share them in the comments. Thanks for watching.
We've had a good ride.
The best.